So
The
here,
broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
can you see it?
Yes, I can. And then
Okay.
when you pass me the controls, is
Yeah,
there a
you
particular?
should have a dashboard on the top of the panel. There's four black like icons, and there's a change presenter. And what I will do, I could do a quick intro, and then I will click on that, and I can change presenter. Your name is listed there. Then it would pull up your screen.
Okay, and then I just advance it as you
Yes.
usually would with arrows or whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. My webcam must not be working. Do you want me to try to put that?
I don't use a webcam ordinarily.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
you're welcome to, but I typically
If,
don't.
if, if you don't, then I won't either.
Okay.
Different folks like to do different things, but if that's your mode, we'll stick with it.
Okay, that's great. And you're in Denver, correct?
I am. Tiffany and I were at the the Colorado Community Action Association meeting yesterday. Yesterday we did a big kind of transformational community action session, all day long thing. And then she's back there this morning doing racial equity. And so I'm doing this from my hotel room, and then I'll hit the road once I'm done.
Okay, great.
We're actually in Colorado Springs, so.
Oh, that's a beautiful city.
It is. I'm looking at a mountain and wishing that I had time to go explore it, but.
Yes, that's the downside of this work, right? We're in beautiful spaces that we can't really see.
Yeah, that's right. But we can go back another time and explore, so that
Absolutely.
works. We probably have more content here than I'll cover, but I
Okay.
thought I'd put it in the slide deck, and then when you share it with your members, it'll be there for them. So
Yeah, and just looking through it, it's so much great information. So I'm really excited to have this here and to really encourage, you know, this two generation work. It's so important, and especially as we dive deeper into the impact of trauma and how is it that we can really make big shifts in this work. And this to me is where it all begins.
yeah, I agree. And Denise and Tiffany and I were actually on the phone this morning, and we were talking about family-centered coaching and prosperity agenda, and we may want to loop back with you. I shared with them that you had done a little bit of thinking about the difference between FCC and family development,
Mm-hmm.
and we're thinking about trying to have a call or a conversation with Prosperity Agenda, because we have so many agencies all over the country that are looking to get training, and we're sort of wondering, can we get an efficiency or some kind of cost reduction for those agencies through some kind of different model or partnership with Prosperity Agenda. So we'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about some of this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Be happy to have those conversations. Yeah, I think the more that we can, really get this, let me back up. What I'm attempting to do is really to embed quite a bit of the family-centered coaching into our family development training, and then pulling out parts of it just for standalones, just to kind of really push this message, this forward, this work forward. We really have to look at this from that holistic perspective. The whole family has to be engaged, and how is it that we structure ourselves, around a trauma-informed practices, and all of those I think really blend so well, especially when we're looking at promoting equity.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, Jeannie, it's just about 10, so I'm going to wait until the official clock, my cell phone, tells me it's 10,
Okay,
and then we'll start.
sounds good.
All right, it is. Good morning, everyone. This is Christine Westerlin and from ICA, and I am so pleased to have with us today Jeannie Chaffin. She is going to give us some, I think, fascinating insight into two-generation whole family approaches, really connected to our work in reducing poverty. And Jeannie, welcome. So happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
Just a few details as we get started on this webinar. We will record this webinar, and so a copy of the webinar will be made available to our registrants, and we are attempting to figure out how to make it work on our webpage. That is a work in progress, but we will make that happen. You are all muted, so we would ask if you do have questions, and I hope that you do, that you would use your dashboard to ask a question, and I'll be monitoring those. And if I see questions come up, Jeannie, we will stop and take those questions, or if you'd prefer, we can wait till the end. It's your preference. So without any further ado, I am going to turn this over to Jeannie. And Jeannie, I'm going to make you the presenter, and welcome once again. We welcome your voice to Springfield and to the state of Illinois.
Thank you very much, Christine. I appreciate this invitation. Oh dear, I think I just changed. Messed up our presentation, Christine. Are you seeing your presentation there?
I see it. Would you like me to advance it?
Can you try giving me access again?
Okay, will do. Okay, I'm gonna give it back to myself, and then I'm gonna give it back to you. And you should have it now.
Okay, it says main screen or my screen. I guess I just want to stay on main screen.
I would think so.
And then when I say show my screen, it looks like it's showing my desktop.
Your desktop.
Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. We don't want that, do we? You don't want to see my family there.
I love seeing your family.
Maybe you should take it back.
I'll take it back.
Okay.
All right. All right, it is back here. I hope that all can see our screen. And Jeannie, if you just give me a heads up when you want to change slides.
Okay, thank you. So thank you so much for this invitation, and I'm really pleased to be able to talk to some Illinois folks about two-gen whole family approaches. Some of you may know that I served as the OCS director in the Obama administration, and while I was there, we really began to focus on how to support states and local agencies in adopting or shifting to a whole family approach. And I worked with colleagues over in the TANF department and Head Start, and we brought CSBG to the table, and we ended up doing a little pilot project that was actually across the federal government called Rural Impact, which was a pilot demonstration to look at implementing two-gen whole family approaches in rural places. And there were 10 sites designated across the country by the Obama administration, and 5 of those were community action agencies. So that effort really helped us learn a little bit about what it takes for community action agencies to shift to a whole family approach. And the National Community Action Partnership was the technical assistance provider, along with the American Academy of Pediatricians, on that effort. And the partnership, that began a lot of work that the partnership has done to create tools and resources for community action agencies. And when I left the Obama administration, I engaged with the partnership as a consultant or subject matter expert to help community action agencies make this shift and begin to sort of think about adopting 2-gen whole family approaches. So I'm going to share a lot of the resources and the thinking that the partnership has developed over the last, really probably 3 to 5 years. And there's a ton of information, and I'll note this at the end of the webinar, a ton of information on the partnership's website that you can turn to help you. We have a slide deck here that's jam-packed, and I'm going to actually skip a few slides. I may not go over them today, but I wanted to put them in the slide deck so that you would have them for reference, and so that when Christine makes this available to you, you can go back and look at some other things more deeply. And again, I've got a lot of resources here, and there are links and that kind of thing that you can look to. So we'll start moving here. We always start all the partnership and webinars with the promise. So I'm just going to recite the promise, and you can do that at your agency with me. And I think it's a good way to get us centered on who we are and what we're about. The promise of community action. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. And then just a little reminder, we probably have folks on the line who have different levels of engagement with the Community Action Network, but we have 1,000 agencies across the country, 44 state associations. We have state CSBG offices in every state. And each year, the Community Action Network serves about 15 million people. And I would add, because we're talking about 2-gen and whole family approaches today, that we probably have somewhere now between 40 and 80 community action agencies that we know are shifting to whole family approaches. And, every day I learn about more. I'm actually in Colorado today, and there's a community action agency that I was not familiar with that's doing a 2-gen pilot in Southwest Colorado. So there really is a movement to think about how to serve parents and children together in a more robust, high-impact way. So I wanted to talk just a minute about the why of 2-gen and whole family, because we sort of are seeing a movement not only in community action, but across the whole human service field for 2-gen and whole family. And you'll notice that I try to say 2-gen whole family, depending on what state you're in. State officials and folks use different terms. In Tennessee, for example, they really do use the 2-gen title, but in Virginia, they're really talking about whole family approaches. So most of the time, people mean the same thing. So you may hear me interchange those. But because this sort of is a movement, I think it's good to think about the why a little bit, so that it doesn't just become a flavor of the day or something that, in people's pursuit of grants and new opportunities, they just kind of adopt 2-gen without really understanding the why. So we'll talk a few slides here about the why. So first off, we know that poverty rates are returning to levels comparable to the recession of 2007, 2008. And this is good. And for some areas, some particular geographies have not returned to pre-recession levels, but overall in the country we have. But if you dig into that a little bit, you see that recovery and the poverty rates for certain populations are still very troubling. And so if you'll go to the next slide, Christine, we can kind of see nationally that our the poverty rate in 2017 was down to 12.3. That represents 39.7 million people. So we still, have a lot of poverty. And if you go to the next slide, we'll see that in certain areas of the country, certainly our poverty rate is much higher. In the South and sort of the Rust Belt in Appalachia, the Southwest, you know, we still have some really persistently high areas of poverty. And then if you go to the next slide, we can kind of see that for certain demographics, for certain groups of children, Black children, Hispanic children, American Indian, the poverty rates are very high. So although overall the poverty rate is down, for certain populations, for certain race and ethnicities, we have very high poverty, we have high levels of deep poverty. And the key thing about that is that we're really starting to understand in our country, based on research and science, due to trauma and you know, adverse childhood experiences and a number of things, that the longer a child spends in poverty, the more their adult outcomes can be compromised. And so if you'll go to the next slide, again, the children living in poverty by region, and then maybe one more, Christine. This issue of child poverty and sort of the adult outcomes, it sort of plays out in a number of different ways. So first off, the fading American dream. Lots of people for a long time in this country have kind of counted on children doing better than their parents. And so if you go back, you know, to 1940, you know, 90% of children as they moved into adulthood, they did better than their parents. But now, you know, you look down into our current situation, and we're on a trajectory of, you know, not even 50% of kids doing as well as their parents. And so that's troubling. And so that's part of the why, that we have to figure out how to help kids and then as they move into adulthood, do better. So this is some new work that's out, the National Academy of Sciences, a roadmap to reducing poverty. So Congress asked the Academy of Sciences to look at child poverty. And in this report, you know, they clearly say that the evidence does indeed indicate that income poverty or a lack of income itself causes negative child outcomes, especially when poverty occurs in early childhood or persists throughout a large portion of childhood. So basically what the National Academy is affirming here, and we all know this because we see this in community action, that when there is not income in a family, when there's a lack of income, that really has a negative effect. And the deeper that the poverty is, the worse the outcome. So go one more slide forward, Christine. Let's see, another one, please. And one more. Oh, okay, one more. I'm trying to find my graph there. There we go, thank you. So this is sort of a visual representation of what the National Academy is saying, and it's really part of the why of 2Gen, is that when children are in poverty, when there is an income or an income deficit in the family, so that's really the investment pathway, or when there is stress or adverse childhood experiences happening, that will create negative child outcomes and eventually poor adult outcomes. And so we have to intervene with the parent, right? Because the child doesn't have control of the sort of stability and security of the home. And so that right there tells us that 2Gen whole family is really important, that, you know, we could provide the best quality early Head Start day, for example, and we could do a really great job of early childhood. But if that child comes home and there's stress, let's say the utilities are off in the home, or there's not enough food, and that's because there's not enough income, that Head Start day is really you know, probably going to go by the wayside, and that child's outcomes are going to be impacted. So in our country, we've really focused a lot on early childhood, and in some ways I think neglected to think about the parent role as much as we should. And so 2Gen really tries to bring that together. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what is our shared language and understanding of 2Gen, because what we often see when we begin to talk about 2Gen whole family is people can buy into it for all the reasons that I just mentioned. And then they sort of think sometimes, well, we're already doing that because we serve parents and we serve children, and we do Head Start, for example. Maybe you're an organization that provides Head Start, and you are well on your way to 2Gen or whole family if you do Head Start, but there's a little bit more to understand and unpack. So let's talk a little bit about some shared language of 2Gen. So the first thing I think that it's helpful to understand is kind of service integration or coordinated services, or some people call this bundled services. And you may be familiar, there's been a movement around for a while to try to really help integrate and coordinate services. And community action, you know, the best community action agencies, I think, do that at their core. And you know, we have different ways that we've done that, you know, sometimes through case management or some form of coaching, or no wrong door, you know, one intake kind of thing. So there are lots of ways that we operationalize service integration. And you can pursue service integration for a lot of different populations. So for example, many agencies that I talk to are really looking to integrate services for folks who are re-entering from prison, re-entering the community. They coordinate housing and education and work for those folks that are returning. Or for example, you may be integrating services for homeless folks or veterans. That's all good, but you wouldn't call that 2Gen. What 2Gen will be is integrating services for parents and children. So it's for that particular population. And so sometimes I find that people get service integration and 2Gen kind of mixed up in their minds. And certainly service integration is a piece of 2Gen, but there's more of 2Gen. So let's talk about what else does it take beyond service integration to make something a 2Gen approach. So Aspen Ascend, let's see, I think we do have time for this video. Christine, if you can get that to run, I think that'd be great for folks to just see this little 4-minute clip of, this is the Roanoke Community Action Agency and their 2Gen whole approach story.
I guess the biggest accomplishment that I've had is actually doing it and showing the kids that it's never too late to do what you want. I knew, like, I have to get a job because I have kids I have to take care of.
When I started the process, I was going through a very difficult time in my life.
I didn't have a dependable babysitter. It made me look like I was not reliable. A lot of times I had to call in or make sacrifices and let my children go somewhere for, you know, a whole weekend just so that I could work and make money to pay the bills.
My name is Sharice, and I am the Assistant Project Manager with TAP Swift Start, and I get to empower people to change their lives every day. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing them get to that end goal. As children, we love to dream and imagine, but when we grow up, we're like, no, I didn't do that. Too late to start a new career. So what's really cool about Swift Start is the ability to address the entire family and looks at ending generational poverty. We want to help the parent move forward into their educational goals and move from a job to a career. And we want to help the children move forward with their education by putting them in safe, affordable, and reliable childcare.
They do help way more than most programs do because of the daycare. And they also help with transportation. So right now I don't stress like I used to stress. They place you into somewhere to do your clinicals, or they place you somewhere to where you get experience to learn to do what you want to do. I went to school Monday through Friday, and I was able to work doubles every weekend to make sure that I had the bills paid. Before I actually finished the program, I had already had an interview set up. I have a job that I can work my schedule that I want, and it's dependable. I definitely feel like I'm in a comfortable place right now, just because I have the job that I have from the training that I took through SwiftStart. SwiftStart focuses on healthcare, IT, and advanced manufacturing. We talk about it being a journey and not a race, and we walk with them to get there. The SwiftStart leaders believe in you 100% and go the extra mile for you. They become family. We definitely see new success stories every day. If you're a parent looking to go back to school and train for a higher paying career, contact TAP SwiftStart. We can help you eliminate the barriers to going back to school. If you feel like you're struggling or you don't enjoy what you do, go through a program. I have my beautiful family. I have a career that I enjoy. And I like doing what I do. I feel like I have everything. My name is Melissa, and I am a CNA graduate of the TAP SwiftStart program. My name is Tandia, and I'm currently a certified clinical medical assistant. My name is Tiffany, and I am a phlebotomist, and I'm doing what I love.
Thanks, Christine. So I just love that video because it really does highlight some of the core components of 2Gen Whole Family. So you can really see in that video that the program at TAP serves both parents and children together. So the parents are getting educational support, they're getting training, and they're helping to achieve their, not just a job, but a career. And that's going to create security and hopefully a family supporting wage that's going to improve both that investment pathway that I showed you and the stress pathway. So hopefully having that better job, that family supporting job or career will create more stability and will allow the parent to be the very best parent they can be. At the same time, at the very same time, the child is getting safe, affordable, quality child care that helps for their development and will create hopefully a good ability of them to be safe and learn and grow and advance and have good adult outcomes. So that's sort of the 2Gen whole family approach, meeting the needs of children and parents together. I think I should also sort of mention that when we say 2Gen, we also know that sometimes it's multi-gen. There may be grandparents involved. Sometimes the parents are not in the picture. We have a lot of grandparents raising children around the country, and when we use these terms 2Gen and parent, we're really sort of talking about the caretaker in the child's life. And we know that families kind of define themselves, and families can be made up a lot of different ways. So don't get caught up or hung up sort of on the child and the parent literally. There are lots of different kinds of families. And part of our design here and approach is that when you coordinate services that you're going to, and you're serving both the parent and child, you're going to have better outcomes. But here is sort of some characteristics that might help you as I walk through these. Think about if you're sort of thinking you're doing 2Gen already, think about whether you meet all of these characteristics or not. And think about the ones where maybe you need to strengthen and work a little bit more if you're sort of desiring to shift to whole family. So first off, family goals are shared across programs. So we have to provide a range of services to families, and that means that we're going to have to work across programs, and that we all need to be working sort of on those goals with that family together, and not have family goals, 3 or 4 different kinds of family goals across multiple programs. Second, we need to have goals and outcomes for children, for parents, and for the family. So many times we may have goals for parents in some of our programming, but we're not really addressing any of the child's outcomes, or vice versa. So in this, we have coordinated goals for children, parents, and family across programs. And then we're really aligning our services for families in ways that respond to their unique needs. So if you heard some of those families talk at TAP about, they walk with us and they meet us where we're at, and that's really about families need different things. Poverty is complex. Some families need some help with housing in order to pursue their employment and educational goals. Other families may not, and so we have to be able to align the right suite of services to meet that family's needs. And we have to do that in ways that makes access easier and doesn't put the burden on the families to coordinate and align all this stuff, but really does that sort of in the background from an agency perspective, and really doesn't add more sort of stress to families by making them search out and coordinate all their services. And then this last one, which is really the most important thing in some respects, is that you have to have high quality, intensive, intentional parent and child services at the same time. So you might say, well, that's obvious, but let me sort of unpack it a little bit and sort of explain that. Again, if you are operating Head Start in this example, and you want to, sort of shift to 2Gen, you might think, well, Head Start already has a parent component. But what I would contend is that the parent component is probably not as intensive as your child component in Head Start, and it's probably not intensive enough to do the things that you just saw, for example, in the Swift Start program design. So they have Head Start at TAP, and they're certainly building on Head Start in some ways, and also some child care subsidy. But then they've really brought up the quality and the intensity and the intentionality of the parent component by having the parent be able to pursue some really good health and medical training. And that oftentimes is not what we're linking up with some of our early childhood. So 2Gen 1.0 is oftentimes Head Start is identified as 1.0, or other interventions that became popular with welfare reform. And some of those interventions, we really did learn that intentional service integration and quality and intensity matter, and also who you're targeting. As you can see from some of the science and some of the things that I've talked about, the benefit of moving a family to stability and helping parents when their kids are young is, science has proven that is really important. So the shorter time a kid spends in poverty, and the younger they are when they have that spell of poverty, the better their adult outcomes. So if we're thinking about where we target this intervention, we want to target it to places, to families where there are younger children, and also where the parents themselves may be younger. And then we won't go into it today too much because we just don't have time to cover the whole waterfront. but how you work with families and doing that in more of a coaching manner where you really come alongside families and you listen to their needs and you design with the families alongside and with you instead of designing for families really matters a lot in 2Gen. Let's go to the next slides, Christine, please. So I'm not going to go into it in great detail because I've talked a little bit about the why, but if you're trying to make the case for 2Gen, there's some great resources on the return on investment, and it really has to do with the things that I've mentioned to you about intervening early and the cost, the benefit of that in a parent, in a child's life and income. So I'm going to, some of you may be familiar with Garrett County Community Action and Tulsa Community Action in Oklahoma, and both of those community action agencies are leaders in 2Gen whole family. And these couple of slides here really note the latest evidence on how 2Gen is playing out from sort of a research perspective. And you've got links there and you can look at that. With 2Gen, it's really a promising practice. The evidence is sort of underway, the research is underway, and CAP Tulsa is sort of leading the way. So if you want to know more about the research base, where it stands now, you can check out some of this research that I've listed here on these slides with CAP Tulsa. It is worth saying, because I haven't probably noted this as much, that a lot of the brain science around children is driving the shift to 2Gen 2.0, but also that we're learning that people's brains change, and there are these windows of opportunity that can really maximize our investment. So we know that that's early in a child's life, 0 to 5. It also happens with teenagers. And then on the next slide, we kind of highlight the new research that's out there that parents' brains change. When they bring that newborn home, that their brain is really kind of restructuring itself in that, and those of you that are parents are not surprised because you know what you experience when you bring that new baby home and you have to make all these changes in your world and your life. And so there's also an opportunity for very new parents to maximize investment by capitalizing on a time where they're really open, their brain is open to changes and restructuring. So that's something that people talk less about, but also has an impact on who you target. So Aspen Ascend has done a really good job of putting some frameworks out. They sort of Ascend serves as a hub for 2Generation efforts, and they've really worked hard to develop the 2Generation field. They also have a network that folks can be invited to be part of the 2Gen network, which is sort of a learning community. In this framework, they're sort of trying to get you to think a little bit about, yes, there are child-focused programs, and yes, there are parent. And when we bring those together, that's the whole family. And sort of we're all on a continuum. You have different interventions at your agency that might be child and parent. Where are your interventions? Maybe you do, have some whole family interventions, and those might be opportunities for you to build quality and intensity with some of those. So this can kind of serve as a little readiness check for you to kind of think about where your different approaches are. And so in the Ascend 2Gen theory of change, what they're saying is that, 2Generation theories of change, when we increase family economic security, so all that investment income kind of stuff, and educational success, which really translates to more security, and health and well-being from one generation to the next, we will really break the cycle of poverty. So we have families, and we need to provide comprehensive coordinated services in certain areas. I'm going to come back to that. And then families will thrive. So let's talk about the Ascend domains for a minute, these cogs, and I think they're in the next slide in a bigger picture. So Ascend has sort of identified these areas as important to any 2Gen. So if we said you have to have high quality and you have to be intentional, in what areas do you need to be thinking about that? And it's all of these areas here. So definitely early childhood education, but for all the reasons we've already noted. And just like the Swift Start example, you know, you need to have post-secondary and employment pathways. So there needs to be training and supports. And not to say that any one community action agency or organization has to do all of these things. Many times these areas are covered by a collaborative or a partnership. So we see a lot of community action or 2Gen programs who may partner with a community college, and the community college kind of takes on the employment pathway stuff. So this can be a collaboration for sure. In addition to those first two, also sort of thinking about economic assets and some of the other supports that feed into the first two. So housing, coordinated services, financial literacy, all of those kinds of things. And then of course health and well-being, and that's mental health and trauma-informed care, for both the parent and the child. And finally, what a lot of people call the secret sauce of 2Gen is sort of paying attention to the social capital. So that's both bridging and bonding social capital. So bonding social capital means the networks that of friends and family and supporters that folks may have to help them on their journey, which we all need. And then bridging social capital is relationships that people may have beyond sort of their friends and family, and that are there, could be you know, mentors or coaches or others who they're connected with to help them on their journey. And so we all know that poverty is more than just economic success, that it's also about feeling like you belong in your community and you have value as well as some power. And a lot of that gets addressed through social capital. So we have to build that too. So in addition to being high quality, serving parents and children at the same time, you need to be intentional about all of these areas. Why is that? Why would you need to be this comprehensive? Well, if we're going to break the cycle of poverty, we have to address more than sort of one issue, right? Poverty is complex. Families, you know, don't come with, you know, needs and strengths in all these areas, but all of these areas we need to be able to help families where they do have needs and build on their strengths in any of these areas. So that is really important. And if you've been around and doing case management coaching, you know that, you know, all of these areas are pretty important to families over the long term. So just some guiding principles. They're sort of similar to the characteristics I mentioned earlier, but, you know, measuring and accounting for outcomes for both children and parents. But Ascend is also built in a couple other guiding principles here. And the second one is engaging and listening to the voices of families. So the organizations that we've seen that deeply listen to their families and talk to families about what they need before they start arranging and aligning and designing their approach do much better. They just have a much deeper understanding of what and how families want to be supported, and when they build that into their design and when they pay attention to it all along the way, it really helps. And then also assuring equity and ensuring how we're paying attention to equity in our design and in our service, whether it's how we recruit families or how we support them, how we do the work, whether, you know, it's culturally competent and really, you know, respectful and leaves people with a lot of dignity. There are a lot of things that we need to consider around equity, and paying attention to that all along the way is important. Of course, looking at evidence and, as I said before, aligning and linking funding streams. Some success factors, I've touched on these in different ways. Children and families at the center, equity. Something that I haven't talked yet about is leadership and culture change. So if you're really going to shift your organization, if you're going to coordinate across a couple sets of programs and really put families at the center, your leadership has to be supportive of that, and it really does take a culture change, which means things are going to probably have to happen a little bit differently. Just for example, like maybe you will need to have coordinated case planning meetings across programs to look at what's going on with the families that you're serving in 2Gen. That kind of operational and implementation change really takes leadership, buy-in, and support. So you really need to think about how you as leaders, or how your leaders are engaged. There's really not, in some states are starting to use TANF money and other sources of funding to support 2Gen, but it really is about leveraging and integrating what you already have a lot, and that's that alignment. I've talked about social capital and cross-system or cross-funding, and then changing the narrative, which, trying to sort of get out of some of the mental models that we do for people, that people are to blame for their situation, or that families don't bring any strengths. There's a lot of negative narratives out there that we have to sort of get away from. One that we were talking about the other day with some people is the role of fathers, and we often subconsciously have some baggage there, and we don't design things to really support fathers as much as we should. So those are some success factors that you can read more about and learn as you're making this effort. And I'm guessing that you're seeing that I'm really trying to give you a scan of the lay of the land, and then depending on where you're at, you're going to need to go deeper into other areas. This is a paper that the Administration for Children and Families put together after sort of doing a literature review of some of the 2Gen work that's out there. And it's a model that helps you sort of see, at the top there, they have the parent services and parent outcomes. In the middle, kind of coordinated design and the family and the home. And then at the bottom, the child services and child outcomes. And one of the reasons I like this is if you look at the very bottom, it says 0 years, passage of time 5 years. That it really conveys the importance of intensity. And intensity also includes time. Like, we're not going to make, we're not going to be able to do this in a 6-month period. It's going to take time to help families make this kind of change, the intensity and the quality of the change that we're talking about. And we really need to understand that from the beginning, because that may mean that you have to figure out how to support families over time. Maybe if you're recruiting in your Head Start program and families come in and there's a year or two, then what do you do to support those families beyond Head Start? Or maybe you target, some of your younger Head Start families, so you have that passage of time with them. So I just like this because I think it's a good visual for helping you think about, all of this stuff together, as well as, some of the intensity issues. And you can read about their whole model in their paper if this sort of appeals to you. The other thing I'm playing around with to try to reiterate with community action agencies is this, 2Gen readiness. Not everybody's ready for 2Gen. Not every community action agency is ready. It doesn't mean that you won't be ready later, and sort of helping you to understand what you might need to do to get ready. So let's say you're a community action agency and you you don't have a high quality parent component. Like you're not doing anything intensive to sort of help parents have a family supporting wage through education or training or anything like that, then that might be something that you need to develop, or you need to find a partner that can help you develop sort of that high quality parent service. And you could be on the other side of that, in that you don't have a high quality child service, or maybe your child service, maybe there's some issues with it. Maybe you have a child service, but it's not really high quality. You're struggling a little bit to have good class scores in your Head Start program or something like that. It won't do us any good to integrate and shift to whole family if the services that are present are kind of mediocre. We have to address the quality issue. We have to make sure there are parent services and child services. Also, those could be provided by collaboration. I don't want to, say that the Community Action Agency has to be doing everything, but we need to have high quality services for both. And then we need to think sort of in the next step, how are those integrated and offered to parents and children at the same time? So it's that integrated, coordinated mode. So how do we bring those together? And then finally, once we have high quality, intensive, integrated services, we can think about having a 2-gen approach or strategy or even organization. So this really is a process, and this happens over time too. And when you talk to organizations that have been at this for a while, they will tell you that they didn't get to be a 2-gen organization, or they didn't have a 2-gen approach overnight. It was a process, and all along the way of this, you're figuring out all the pieces of implementation around family assessment, staff training, measuring and tracking child, parent, and family goals together, maybe coordinating data with partners, and all of that has to sort of be figured out along the way, and that's really the journey, and that's the shift. This just helps you to see that, on that journey, you might be in sort of an approach mode where you're trying to change your mindset around in a couple of particular programs. You might try implementing a certain 2-gen strategy where you coordinate some services. And then, you might, if you think about Garrett County Community Action Agency in Maryland, they're really a 2-gen organization where all their work with families is really comes from a 2-gen approach or mindset. And so that's another way to sort of think about their journey or the continuum of where you might go in your organization. So this next set of slides about understanding the whole family approach building blocks are some areas, some really topics that the National Partnership has put together, and they have this nice visual on the next slide that sort of shows what are some of the internal and external aspects that you need to pay attention to if you're going to shift to a whole family approach. And some of them you've heard me mention already about engaging family voices, building and using leadership. But also attending to organizational change, figure out how you're going to fund. And the partnership on their website has a table of all of these areas, and for each one of these areas they have a dozen resources that you can review to learn more about that particular topic. And I always joke and say, people say to me, Jeannie, nobody can read all these resources, there's too many. But what I would advise organizations to do is, if you're really wanting to make this shift, is, sort of look at these areas and think about where you believe you might need to sort of increase your learning. Like maybe you really don't understand parent and child service integration. So you could divide up the resources in that particular topic and do some reading and learning and then come back together as a team. Or maybe you think, we're really going to have to work on building some leadership on this and look at that. So those resources are on the partnership website. And I think maybe in the next couple of slides, there may be a little bit more detail about that. I'm not going to go into all of those topics, but definitely check them out. We did had not remembered that we put in here some of the work that's going on across the network. And I've already mentioned CAP Tulsa and Garrett County. I mentioned the Rural Impact, 6 community action agencies that were part of that Obama administration demonstration. We have a whole family approach community of practice right now that Annie Casey Foundation is funding, and there are 10 CAAs in that. And we've had a learning community group that had 16 CAAs, and right now a learning community group that's implementing some innovative practices. A lot of these folks are willing to share. They're all listed on the partnership website in one way or another, and so you can check some of those lists out and reach out to some of those agencies if you want to talk to agencies that are doing things in your space. And you can kind of see here with the list too where some of those folks are at, and who might be somebody that you could talk to or in your area. We'll do some things at the partnership conference too to lift up some of their work. So a lot of what we have left in this slide are resources. So we have a design plan that we've developed to help agencies think through their whole design of their 2-gen approach, and that is on the partnerships website. Maybe the next slide, Christine. This is the website, yeah, the design plan. And then there are slides here with resources from Aspen, Ascend, from the Annie Casey Foundation, from the partnership, and you can look through those and look at the website. But I really would like to stop for a minute, and maybe we can unmute folks. You definitely have the chat box, and see if there are questions or things that you're noodling around on, just sort of like what's my, wondering what your next step might be. If you could put a question into the chat, or if you, can unmute yourself and ask a question. I'd really like to see what's on your mind after you've sort of seen this whole scan of some of the things out there. And I know you're all at different places, so probably different things are resonating for you.
All right, if you want to, I'm going to unmute everybody. I think GoToWebinar is being a little contrary this morning. But yeah, if you want to raise your hand or you have your dashboard to ask a question, I would encourage you to do that. Jeannie, one question that I thought of is, I think a lot of times we wait for that perfect family to walk through the door that we believe that they're perfect to be, let's say, in a pilot. That's wrong thinking, I'm sure. So is this something that we want to consider, that all families are potential candidates for this whole family approach? I mean, we don't want to really look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, I think it's worth agencies spending some time talking about their target population as far as like age or, some of their existing programming. Like, certainly I think that you guys are in Illinois, you're not that far from Missouri. The Missouri agency that's in our COP has targeted their Head Start families, and their second phase is sort of looking at families that they have in their housing, Section 8 program perhaps. And then, you can even sort of think about in those programs, families with kids, under 5, or families where the parents are, 18 to 25, that kind of thing. And then talk to all of those families, right? Like you never know when a family's going to be ready, is what I say. And we can, once we sort of know our target population, which really should be driven in some ways by what we're trying to achieve and the programs that we have to sort of maybe integrate and align, then we need to just invite. I think some things that agencies have done, like doing some focus groups with that potential target population and talking to them about where they're at and what their need, also helps you to be a little bit more savvy about who to identify and recruit, and also what they need. So I really encourage some focus groups if you're sort of starting about thinking about this, and doing those in the successful community action way that we do them. But I think that's, been proven to be pretty helpful too. And also the other second thing I was going to say was a lot of agencies have piloted. So they've said, okay, we're just going to pilot sort of coordinating some of this and pulling together, some intensive services for, let's say, 10 families. And that's what Garrett County did in the beginning. And think about your learning. It's sort of like prototyping, right? Like, let's sort of prototype this with a few families, and then we can learn and then do our more full-blown design. And then we'll know more about sort of, what's working for what families.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there other questions out there? Again, feel free to use your dashboard to ask a question. Jeannie, if you don't mind, I have another question.
Okay.
So thinking about the state CSBG offices, have we found, or are you aware, are they typically supportive of this type of work? I mean, to me, the outcomes from this work are extraordinary if you go through all these steps.
Yeah. I think they are really starting to. There's pockets in Tennessee. They have used some of their state CSBG discretionary to provide some training to all the community action agencies. And then they made it available for them to do some, apply for some kind of, not competitive, but some special one-time money to help agencies, make this shift. In Maryland, the community action agencies, Angela Martin, who leads the state association in Maryland, and the agencies were successful in advocating for some state money to build some capacity in all the Maryland community action agencies. The Virginia Community Action Association and Virginia agencies have got a chunk of, I think it's 1.2 million in TANF dollars that will be used this next year to fund 5 community action 2-gen demonstrations in Virginia. The main community action agencies have worked with their state to get the state to use some of the LIHEAP Assurance $16 to fund family-centered coaching, which we didn't talk a lot about today, but you know about that, Christine.
Right.
And so some of the agencies are using that money to fund their coaches, which is a core component of a lot of 2-gen work, is having those family-centered coaches. So we are really starting to see more. The state of Colorado has done an immense amount through their Department of Human Services. Community Action doesn't live in that department in Colorado, so the community action agencies are just starting to sort of get to be a part of that. But a ton has been done in the TANF Human Service County Welfare world in Colorado around 2-gen whole family.
Great, thank you. I don't see any questions coming up.
So what you might do, Christine, is just flip to the last slide. I think that has my email on it, and so people can take down my email address. And I'm always available. Folks can sort of funnel questions or concerns or comments to Christine, and then or let me know if you have a need or an issue, and we're happy to to help or direct people. So Christina, will do what we can to support you or the agencies in their shift to do this work. So if there's conferences or training opportunities, we can also talk about, how to go deeper than this. We did do, Tiffany and I did a 3-site training in Tennessee. We went to Memphis and Nashville and Knoxville and did training for all the community action agencies, and we did it regionally so agencies could bring more people. So we're happy to talk about next steps with you if this is something that state leadership wants to pursue.
Absolutely, absolutely. We certainly, I know that it's certainly in the conversations here, and I think this webinar, I think will help hopefully spur deeper conversations about that. So thank you for that offer.
Absolutely.
Well, Jeannie, anything else for the good of the order, as they say?
I would just say, I've been in community action 30 years, and there are no silver bullets out there for sure, but I do think that this makes a lot of sense for our individual and family level work, really working intensively with parents and children at the same time. And we can also bring a community lens to this. I mean, I think you really don't wrap services around parents and children without engaging others in the community. And, there's a whole set of things to talk about that. I do believe that both levels are important, and we should be paying close attention to good, intensive individual level services and community level work at the same time. And if this all sounds a little overwhelming, I would also just say that, you can start this wherever you're at. There are ways to make moves to start to make the shift. It doesn't have to be one big giant leap at once. And, there are ways to get started. So folks should be easy about that, and happy to talk with anybody who's interested.
Great. Well, Jeannie, thank you for your sharing your wisdom and your insight into, I think, really something that we need to dive deeper into in Illinois. I think you've given us a lot to think about and to consider. I know certainly we've been talking about, certainly family-centered coaching here. We've been trying to embed that in our family trainings here, and this makes me all the more enthusiastic about making sure that information gets out there. So thank you, Jeannie, so much, and safe travels to you.
All right. Yeah. Hope to see folks in Chicago.
Absolutely. There should be a pretty decent Illinois representation there. So
Yeah. And
right.
so that might be a good place, Christine, if you're leadership, if we wanted to have a little planning discussion or something, there might be some opportunity there, because, definitely we'll all be there.
Okay, that's great. Absolutely. I will start putting bugs in ears.
Okay, take care, guys.
All right. Thank you, Jeannie, so much for being with us today. Just a couple of reminders for you that this webinar has been recorded. It will be made available to all who registered for the webinar. We are more than happy to answer your questions. We'd also want to give our thanks to DCEO. This is part of the DCEO ICA webinar collaboration series. So we appreciate their support in bringing great speakers like Jeannie to all of us here in Illinois. The next webinar is scheduled for August 7th. We will be focusing on LIHEAP online appointments. And I think that is something that is a vital resource for all of us. So again, thank you for your participation today. I'll go ahead and end this webinar for everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeannie.